everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome again to come to USF Transition Seminar. And my name is Yu Zhang. I'm working in the Civil and Environmental Engineering. And this seminar is sponsored by the department, CUTR, Center for Urban Transition Research, student chapters of the ITE, WTS, and also the USDOT Tier 1 centers of TomNet and also the CTEC. So today, we're very glad to have Mr. Ming Gao as our speaker. And Ming is the Model Development Administrator for the Florida DOT District 7. He has been working at the FDOT for over 28 years. His previous experience including traffic operations, drainage design, project management, environmental management, and planning. Earlier, before on this model development administrator, he was responsible for the development. In his current role, he is responsible for the development and implementation of the district's public transportation programs that support aviation, rail, seaport, transit, freight, and intermodal connections. And he also graduated from USF and is a licensed PE in the state of Florida. So thank you very much for being here, Ming, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right.
I'm going to control the slides for you. Just let me know whenever you want me to advance the slide.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Zhang. And I first and foremost, I would like to thank you and all the organizers for inviting me. It's been an honor for me to keep coming back to USF and do presentations since I graduated, and go Bulls. So today what I'm going to talk about is a transit-oriented highway. I know we had talked about transit-oriented development a lot, but I just want to, use this as a topic for our discussion today, a transit-oriented highway. So just to give everyone some background on our project, next slide, please. As you all know, that the department is in the process of developing express lanes on the interstate within the Tampa Bay region. Currently, we are working on several segments going from downtown St. Pete on I-275 all the way across the Howard Franklin Bridge to the downtown interchange where I-275 and I-4 meet, and continue on I-4 all the way out to the Plant City area. So those are the segments that we're planning for express lane, and also on I-75 going from South County all the way up to Bruce B. Down. That is in a distant future. We're not currently pursuing that yet. I mean, although we did the PD&E study for that, but that's not currently being pursued for funding at this time. So as you can see on this map, we have lots going on within the Tampa Bay area. So for the 275 segment north of interchange, all the way up to Bears Avenue, I guess that's our backyard if you're in USF. That segment will not have express lane. We originally had express lane planned, but because of community input, we actually took that out of the picture. However, we are doing some operational improvements within that segment. Basically, we'll extend some through lanes and change some weaving movements. So that's where we're going. Next slide, please. So at the same time, while we're doing the interstate projects, T-BARTA was in the process of planning for premium transit within the Tampa Bay region. So one of the top projects they identified within the planning study was to have a bus rapid transit going from downtown St. Pete all the way up to Pasco County, basically along the interstate. So that pretty much fits within the same corridor as the department is working on for express lane. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to partner into it. And obviously the the department funded the planning study as well as the PD&E study for the BRT project. As you can see on the slide, it's from St. Peter to Wesley Chapel, and TBARTA is planning to pursue Federal Transit Administration capital grant dollar, and they're in the process of doing the PD&E study so they can put the application together and to be submitted next year. Next slide, please. So out of the feasibility study, TBARTA basically looked at the cost to build a regional rapid transit, that is the BRT project, to see how much it will cost if it were to be built as a standalone project. Say, we have no interstate project, TBARTA would just go ahead and get money and build it on its own. That would cost $1.2 billion. And that is a 41-mile long BRT project. So to do that, $1.2 billion is a lot of money for a bus project, right? And also, if you are to pursue federal dollar through FTA, it would not be cost effective, because typically they want to limit that to $10 per trip when you try to do the cost analysis. So this is way above the cost effectiveness threshold. So that would not be feasible project to be entered into the FTA program. So our consultant team did some homework, and they worked with some national experts, and they figured out, hey, what if we partner with the department and see if we can take advantage of the construction project and have the department help put the infrastructure together, not the vehicles and not the station, but rather the running way, because BRT needs dedicated running way, right? So, and I just want to step back a little bit. The $1.2 billion is a total cost for vehicle, station, and running way. So I want to make that clear. So, so when we step back and take a look at it, the consultant team actually made the recommendation, hey, what about the shoulder, the highway shoulder? Can we take advantage of that to run BRT on the shoulder? Now, obviously, there are some operational concerns, some safety concerns, because, shoulders are typically for disabled vehicle, emergency vehicles, and all that. So, how can we put a bus on shoulder and also allowing people to pull the disabled vehicle onto the shoulder and also do it safely, right? So so that's going to take some engineering and coordination between the two projects. So next slide, please. So sorry, can we go back to one? I just want to mention that real quick. So by taking advantage of the DOT project, utilizing the shoulder for running way, the project will actually drop to the cost of $450 million. I just want to point that out. That's a big saving compared to $1.2 billion. So by having a cost of $450 million, it will become cost effective entering into the FTA program. So I just want to give you an example. Say if we run the BRT on shoulder between downtown St. Pete to the Gateway area, and also run the BRT with an express lane across the Howard Franklin Bridge, and also running the BRT in this dedicated running way, between West Shore all the way up to USF area, and also from USF area up to Wesley Chapel, we have mixed traffic. We also have some, freeway BRT lanes there. Having that configuration, the department will actually spend extra $68 to $73 million just for transit accommodation, meaning we're going to make the shoulder wider. Many of you who involve or have experience in roadway design, highway shoulder typically is a 10-foot shoulder, right? So what we're doing is to make our shoulder between 15 to 16 foot wide. So by making it wider, not only we allow bus to travel safely within the shoulder area, but also allow some disabled vehicle to pull aside and perhaps the vehicle can park closely to the edge of pavement, and the bus can find a way to get around it. And at the same time, obviously, we have to increase the frequency of road ranger patrolling. So once we identify a disabled vehicle on highway surveillance camera, we can send the road ranger out and tow away that disabled vehicle and let the bus pass. Next, please. So just a typical section for you to look at, so it's easier to explain that way. This is the half of the typical section. This is basically going southbound, between downtown St. Pete and Gateway. If you look at it, we have in the middle, you have 2 express lane, then you have 3 through lane, regular highway through lane. Then, of course, you have auxiliary lane, basically, highway exit lane and on-ramp and all that. Then on the shoulder, we actually have a 16-foot shoulder. We identified that as a 12-foot bus lane and 4-foot shoulder. So by doing that, we allow bus to jump on the shoulder and, providing more reliable travel than just get stuck in highway traffic, during rush hour. So this way, it provides reliability and make it more attractive for riders. Again, this is the southbound typical section that you're looking at. Next slide, please. So this is the section on I-275 from West Shore to downtown Tampa. And what you're looking at is basically a eastbound, or you can call it northbound I-275, basically going from West Shore toward downtown Tampa. So across, you look at the right-hand side on the screen, you can see, we have 4 through lanes, regular through lanes. You have 2 express lanes, 12-foot express lanes. Then you have 12-foot shoulder on each side. For the main highway area. Now, for this segment, the department has set aside a dedicated transit corridor. That was done years ago. Our leadership back then had the foresight to purchase more right-of-way to accommodate transit, so now it comes in really handy. So in this segment, we can actually build dedicated transit lane, without using any shoulder area for the BRT. Now, this is also a future light rail corridor. So in the event that light rail comes to Tampa, we can certainly convert that corridor to accommodate light rail. And as a matter of fact, what we are building right now is configured to accommodate light rail, not just bus rapid transit. And I want to bring your attention to the yellow area, where it says fill. That lots of dirt will be used to fill that median. If you're familiar with that area, we have a very wide median there. So in order to accommodate that, we have to bring in quite a bit of fill material, and it's cost a lot of money. But the department is going to cover that under the interstate project. It will not be a cost to the transit project, and that's definitely a huge financial support for the transit project. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the I-275 segment between downtown and USF area. As I mentioned before, we're not building express lane in that area, but we are doing some operational improvements. In some area, we are adding an extra lane to avoid some of the weaving movement. So what you're looking at are 2 different options in running bus. So the top option, you look at the inside shoulder lanes. That's where we're going to run the bus on the inside shoulder. You can see the 16-foot bus lane in the middle, as we have done in St. Pete. So you have 4 through lanes, and you have a auxiliary lane on the outside. On the inside, you have the bus lane. So the advantage of having an inside bus lane is that you don't have to worry about the on-ramp and exit ramp, right? When you get to interchange, people have concern about bus interfering with the exiting vehicle and also vehicle coming on to the interstate from local arterials. So the inside lane, you can just keep on going, but the challenge is, how do you stop the bus? Where are you going to put the stop at? Because a inside bus stop will require to expand the interstate at the station area. You basically have to do a boat out. So that requires right of way in that area. So that will create some impact to the community. So it is an option, but it's going to cost some money down the road. So we are keeping it open because at this time, T-BARTA is not ready to make any recommendation whether to go inside or outside. So the department is actually spending extra money to build the typical section that can accommodate both, which brings us to the bottom typical section. So we basically just shift the bus lane to the outside and having 11-foot inside shoulder instead. So this way, we provide the outside shoulder for bus, but it's going to have some operational concerns at the interchange area. So next slide, I think, is where we have the video to show how we can do that. So Dr. John can hit the play button. So as you can see, that is the bus on the outside shoulder. As it moves toward the exit lane, it's coming up. So it's going to continue past the gore area, and that is how we envision this will operate. That is nothing new. It's been done in other area. In Minneapolis, we are seeing this being done. Also in the Boston area, we also seen that being done not only for bus but also for vehicle as well during the peak hour. So that we have seen some previous example and didn't really see a whole lot of safety concerns. Just have to educate folks so they're used to seeing this kind of scenario and not get scared. So that's what we're trying to demonstrate here, that this is an option that we're considering. Okay, next slide. So I just explained the project that we are coordinating with T-BARTA on. So from the department's point of view, is a regional project. We are supporting it, and we are putting lots of money not only for studying, but also in construction dollar as well. So we're trying to make it truly a multimodal project. So in this slide, I want to show you that the regional BRT project is not the only project that the department is investing in, because in order for the regional project to be successful, it needs to be connected to other services as well. On top of the local bus network, we want to make sure that it's connected to other projects that can support this regional transit route as well. Next, please. So intermodal center. So the reason we're doing that is because we understand that in order for a regional system to be successful, you need to have a way to connect the regional traveler to the local system, and the intermodal center are the connecting point. Basically, what we're looking at in downtown Tampa, the Gateway area, University, at USF area, in Wesley Chapel, and also in West Shore. So there's just total of 5 areas we're looking at, perhaps not only a transit center, but rather a multi-use center, try to help with transit-oriented development in that area, especially in the West Shore. Some of you probably know that the department owns the DoubleTree Hotel as well as the Charlie Steakhouse. So we own almost 9 acres in a prime business district. So we can certainly introduce some P3 scenario, or perhaps work with some developers and have a joint development there. We are currently looking at different footprint and different scenario for West Shore. Now, the other 4 locations in downtown Tampa, we also own the jail site, the former jail site that's right next to the interstate. Right now is a parking space, parking lot for the city of Tampa, but we can certainly take advantage of that property. Things close to 4 acres to build an intermodal center there as well. University area, there are quite a few opportunities for us. There's some private property that expressed interest to us. The southeast corner of Fowler in Nebraska, the University Square Mall, and all the way to where USF is. So there are just different property that express interest, and we are looking at different sites to develop that. And Wesley Chapel, obviously the stable 56 and 75 interchange, is a very, very busy interchange, and we definitely see some opportunity there to install some park and ride, providing transit service for people going into downtown Tampa and West Shore. And in the Gateway area, we are working with Pinellas MPO for Pinellas because they are doing a mid-county master plan update. So it's a great opportunity for us to identify sites where we can provide transit service and at the same time help support the land use plan for the county in that general area. So that's the Intermodal Center project. Again, the department is funding all those efforts in planning and perhaps in future project for capital expenses. Next. Another project is the Tampa streetcars. Right now, the streetcar project went from Ybor all the way through Channelside, and the final stop is at the Whiting Street parking garage, and basically just short of the City of Tampa City Hall. The proposed extension of the streetcar is go all the way into the Heights, basically near Armature Work. So it's a 1.1 mile extension. They try to take advantage of the state road, basically Florida Avenue and Tampa Street. It's a one-way pair, and they're also looking at modernization. They want to run modern streetcar instead of the current, traditional old-fashioned streetcar. They are looking at increasing the capacity of their service. So again, the department is funding that study effort, and we are part of the coordination with FTA in getting federal dollar for this project. So as you can see, this project is connected or crosses the regional BRT route. So it will be a good connection for folks coming into Tampa through the BRT and hop on the streetcar and get to different destinations within the downtown area in Ybor. Next, please. So the Hart Arterial, it's a $2.5 million grant that the department gave to the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority to study a local BRT route, basically going from downtown Tampa and all the way up to USF area. I think the map is on the next slide. So as you can see, the study areas actually, the southern portion of it, it actually runs in the same alignment as the streetcar, then all the way up Florida Avenue, and come across the interstate and all the way to USF campus. I think right now the thought is the bus will run all the way to the University Area Transit Center by the VA hospital. You're all familiar with that area. So what this thing does is bringing folks between downtown Tampa to USF area and vice versa, and also is the busiest transit ridership route in the HART's network. So by providing a BRT, we believe that this will help commuters and also help the local streets, and also providing opportunity for transit-oriented development along that Florida Avenue corridor. Currently there's lots of stuff going on along that corridor. I think having that BRT route, it will even enhance all that development along the same corridor. Next slide, I think I have a cross section there. Yes, that's it. So since Fowler's our own backyard, not only for USF, but also for DOT, I just want to put some emphasis on it, just to show you what we plan on doing. So those are only the two typical sections, two of the typical sections that we are considering. The top one is a least expensive option. Basically, we're going to take the outside lanes on Fowler Avenue, turn that into a BAT lane, basically a business access transit lane. So allowing bus to run on it, as well as turning vehicles, cars, turning in and out of driveway or side street will be allowed to use that lane. So that is the least expensive option. We don't have to do any major construction on Fowler. Rather just go out and do some restriping and providing some transit shelter and station. I think that will enhance transit access along the Fowler corridor and making connection to downtown. Just giving folks another option to go from USF to downtown. The bottom typical section is a more elaborate typical section. Basically, we're looking at running the bus in center lane, and basically that will be the dedicated bus route, and we only leave 3 through lanes for Fowler. But that will require reconstruction of Fowler because we're pushing the traveling all the way out almost to the edge of a right-of-way. So that will require major reconstruction of Fowler. So obviously, in order to implement that, we have to go through a PD&E process, go through all the impacts, environmentally and socially. Also need to get public input on this project. So that's a long term, but the top option, we can probably implement that once HART is ready to move forward. Obviously, they will have to get funding to purchase additional buses, make whatever infrastructure improvements needed on roadway, and also have some public outreach and get some comments from folks in that area. Next slide, please. So over in downtown St. Pete, many of you probably already heard that PSTA got funding from FTA for the project. They got close to 24.8 million from FTA for the project. The department also contributed $10.5 million for the project. So that project basically going from South St. Pete Beach all the way to downtown St. Pete. So it's a pretty long route. but it will serve not only tourists, but also folks working in the service industry along the beach communities and also in downtown Tampa. So it is a great project. We supported the design and study effort, and we're participating in the capital improvement project as well. Next slide. Yeah, so this basically shows the participation by different entities. Again, the project cost is 43.9 million. I also wanted to mention that the department happened to have a resurfacing project in that area. So we purposely let our project early to accommodate this project construction. So it's supposed to start service within 2 to 3 years. So we are pretty excited about that because this is the first premium transit project that's funded by FTA grant in the Tampa Bay region. So hopefully we will have more project to come. Just started a good trend. Next project, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's all the information I have for you. I know there's lots of information to digest. With that, I open for any questions you may have. And obviously, if you want to get more information, you can certainly get in contact with me. I think Dr. Zhang has all my contact information, and she can certainly distribute it to all of you. I thank you for your attention, and I open up for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ming. So any questions from our audience? I saw, yeah, Jake. Jake.
Hi, yes, Jake Marabella. Ming, thank you so much for very exciting projects, and I appreciate you presenting it to us today. I just have a quick question. A lot of exciting projects, big investments. How do you guys look at the benefit cost analysis for these? Is there certain ratios that you try to hit in terms of dollar or travel time savings?
Obviously, most transit project will have to go through the FTA process. I think all of the project I mentioned either had gone through the FTA process or about to enter into the FTA process for the capital investment program. So within that program, the analysis will include cost benefit analysis, not only for the traffic relief, but also, look at economic development, look at safety issues, look at different issues. So, I mean, we are not going to invent a new process to analyze that, but we will rely on the FTA process. At the federal level, there's a lot of expertise there. So, if FTA, give a positive rating for the project, the department will just use the same rating as far as making our investment decisions.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. All right. Ming, also, when you were presenting the regional rapid transit in some segment using the shoulders, and you mentioned that shoulders sometimes used for some emergencies. So I was wondering if the buses are using the shoulders, then what that would affect the emergency events that could happen on the highway.
Right. So our plan is to work with T-Barter and whoever end up being the implementing agency on a concept of operation. We call it CONOP. So we will develop a strategy, under different scenario. One of them will be, what you just mentioned, that, what if there's an emergency situation like a car's burning on the shoulder? What do you do, right? So I think one of the things we can do is, obviously, you can merge the bus back into general purpose lane. They can just travel on the interstate, getting out of the shoulder, relying on technologies, because we are looking at different technology, putting different sensors and early warning devices on bus, letting the driver know, hey, there's an accident or something happened on the shoulder, half mile ahead, maybe a mile ahead, so they know it's time for them to merge back into the general purpose lane. So there's lots of things to be done. So again, it's planning ahead, putting a concept of operation. So make sure all the drivers get proper training on how to do that. So that's the thing that we are doing as part of the process.
Okay, just to follow up on that quickly, because when you show the cross-sectional design, the bus lanes is 16 foot wide, and usually the regular lanes is like a 12. So when the buses merge on the regular lanes, will that cause any problem where the width is enough?
Yeah, so if you look at this design standard for buses, I think minimum we would like to have 11 foot for the bus to operate. Ideally it's 12. So our interstate lane, they're 12-foot lanes. So it shouldn't be any issue for the bus to get on. I think the concern is the travel speed differential, because obviously we all drive cars. We can accelerate a lot better than buses. We can run a lot better buses. So that's one thing that we have to take into consideration. But if you have a major incident up front, even on shoulder, cars will slow down. And again, education is the key. We have to teach the drivers to yield to the bus. The bus need to get back into a general purpose lane. Just have to yield to the bus.
Sure. I think Dr. Xiaopeng Li has a question.
Hi. Thank you, Ming. That's a very nice presentation. So I'm just following with Dr. John's question, about the control and the safety. Is there? I think automated control or driving assistance systems, some of them have already been used in practice in transit control. I think Minnesota did some of that for lane keeping and all these things. So I just wonder that you have any plan in incorporating some add-on system, or in the future even make the vehicle fleet somehow autonomous or automated. Is there any plan or vision along that direction?
Sure, you're right on. That was actually the initial thought, that we can run it as autonomous system. Just like at the airport, if you go to TIA, going from the rental car facility and in the economy parking to the terminal, those are basically vehicle on rubber tire. People will look at it. You don't pay attention to how it's run, but it's basically bus on guideway. They run on rubber tire made by Mitsubishi. So we were thinking about that. Obviously, at this point, it may not be all acceptable. And as far as compatibility, how all the cars on our road are still, majority of it is not automated or don't have the ability to be autonomous. So for the foreseeable future, say the next 10 years, if we are to implement something, obviously we're going to do the traditional way. But long term, we are looking at the automated vehicle technology. Perhaps when all the cars have all the automated sensors, and we have the technology today. We install sensors on buses, for RAM metering. Like you install a RAM metering at the ramp, and you install a device on the bus. When the bus approaching the on ramp, it will trigger, the RAM metering, stop the vehicle, so let the bus pass the ramp before letting other vehicles on. So we have that type of technology available to us, but I think it comes down to the compatibility. Most vehicles on the road just don't have the ability right now. So once we have more you know, technological advanced vehicles on the road, you know, that's definitely a consideration, no doubt.
Yeah, that's great. And I forgot to ask about connected vehicle. For example, for some signal priority, you know, like in other applications, safety or mobility applications. And there is a I4 frame big project coming that is expected to install lots of these RSUs along like I4 corridor and other related arterials. Do you have any synergy on there? Okay.
Yeah, actually, we are part of it. You know, District 7 is part of I4 Frame. As a matter of fact, our traffic ops department is actually leading the effort. So we have been coordinating with a traffic ops department on that. You know, connected technology is actually, you know, more appropriate for transit service, believe it or not, because most bus service, they are on arterials, so they cross signalizing the sections all the time. So right now in the district, you know, within the District 7, Nebraska is the only corridor that have a transit signal priority. But because of its proximity to the interstate, if you think about it, Nebraska is running parallel to Interstate 275, and is not very far from interstate off-ramps. So during peak hours, you know, you don't want to stop traffic, say coming off the interstate at Hillsborough, and start backing up the off-ramp, you know, so traffic will back into the interstate main line. You don't want to do that. So there are lots to be considered as far as signal priority. So, you know, the safety aspect of it, you know, not only for the corridor that the buses run on, but also for the crossroad, you know, for parallel interstate. So there are a lot to be considered. So that all that being looked at as part of the overall picture and the plan for us.
Thanks a lot. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
Hey, this is Jake again. I guess I have one more.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Ming, since you mentioned ramp metering, are there plans to bring ramp metering to the freeways in the Tampa Bay area?
Absolutely, Jake. As a matter of fact, we are doing a bus and shoulder pilot project. It's actually being constructed right now in Pinellas County on 275. So from downtown St. Pete up to Gateway area, we're actually doing a bus and shoulder pilot. So we're making the shoulder 12 foot wide right now. And the strategy is the bus will operate within interstate, you know, travel lane. And when the main line speed drops under 35 miles an hour, buses are allowed to get on shoulder to bypass the congestion. As part of the pilot project, we are installing RAM metering at 54 Avenue and also 38 Avenue, and those two interchange. I don't know if we're doing at 22nd, but I know 30 and 54 for sure. We have that. And it's the exact technology that I mentioned, that we will have a device installed on a bus. I think there's 6 buses for PSTA. We're actually paying for the devices to be installed on the buses. And also we're paying for the equipment to be installed on the on-ramps. And it's a pilot project. We want to test it out. That RAM metering is not for all vehicles, only for buses when the bus crosses the interchange. So we want to see how it works. If it works out well, you know, maybe we can implement that for all the vehicles. You know, I've seen it in California, you know, everywhere, and seemed to be pretty effective. So, you know, yeah. So to answer your question, yes, we are testing it.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Chun.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ming, for your presentation. So I was wondering, I guess I just have 2 small questions. Like, first is, how are the bus drivers' reaction, you know, when they feel like, do they need to, go through extensive training, to be able to know how to navigate the traffic condition. And my second question is, I feel like the actual bus route, there are not that many bus routes that are, mapped to be using highway so far. Like in Tampa, we only have 275 LX, and I think in Pinellas we have a couple more. But so with that, I think if the bus and shoulder project is effective, would we work with her to increase more routes running on freeway or not?
Okay, so to answer your first question, driver training. That was the first thing that came to mind. How driver will react to this type of operation. Are they comfortable enough to do that? So that's why we're doing the pilot project in Pinellas County. We want to see how that operate and how drivers react to things. And also I want to point out that this is not the first bus and shoulder project in the state of Florida. I know we have experience in other states, like in Minnesota, but in Minnesota they have much wider shoulder because snow plow. They can have a very wide space to run on. But down at Miami-Dade, MDX facility, 836, they actually have bus and shoulder running for quite some time now, since 2010, I believe. That was a pilot project, and they had little issues. Very minimum number of accidents attributed to bus and shoulder operation. So we already have some example to follow. So based on that, we actually have a statewide bus and shoulder guideline. You can actually find that online from the DOT website, basically explaining how bus and shoulder operates and listing all the things that we have to address in order to implement that. And one of them, obviously, is bus training, bus drivers training, and others will be law enforcement, how they would, enforce that and making sure no other car getting in front of the bus in the shoulder, and many other things. So yes, answer your question, they will need to go through some training, but we asked that question, and operators and operation managers at PSTA basically told us it's not an issue. They can run it as long as the shoulder at a reasonable slope. As you know, for drainage purpose, oftentimes we build our highway shoulder at a steeper slope than the regular lane. So we are actually purposely building a milder slope for the shoulder, but that will make drainage more complicated. You have to install inlet more frequently. So those are the additional costs that the department will incur doing our interstate construction, and that's why we're saying that we're paying between 70 to 80 million additional costs to our highway construction to accommodate buses. As far as the route is concerned, the infrastructure is for 41 miles, going from St. Pete to Wesley Chapel. But I want you to keep in mind that we don't expect the 41-mile route to be run full time or all the time, because there's simply is not enough people going from St. Pete to Wesley Chapel on a regular basis, right? Or vice versa. But you have that infrastructure in place. Who is to say that you cannot have bus route within Pinellas County, just going from simply downtown St. Pete to Clearwater and use the interstate for half of the route. Going from St. Pete to Gateway, then make a turn onto Almerton or East Bay and go to Clearwater. So same thing in Tampa. Bus route can certainly take advantage, going from West Shore and downtown Tampa or USF. Those are, could be part of a bigger route. Now, obviously, having a regional facility, it is a, luxury for the region. You can connect your local bus network to it. That's why we have intermodal center, making those connections. So we are planning it as a network, not just a route. I think that is the key. In order to move people, to encourage people to use transit, you have to plan it as a network. Make sure there connection between the regional system and the local networks. So I hope that answered your question, Trang.
Yes,
All right.
definitely. Thank you, Mr. Ming.
Thanks, Ming. I think Dr. Lee asked about the connected automated features of the vehicles potentially in the future. And I was wondering for the energy source, are those buses are considered to be using the renewable energy, or it's more like conventional, rely on diesel or gasoline?
Well, why not? Right now, I don't think we had gone that far as energy is concerned. We did look at different energy options. For example, in Detroit, they have a BRT system on Woodrow Boulevard. That thing is run on electricity, but it does not really have the overhead electrical line for the entire route. They have quick charging at the station. Basically, they pull into a station, the catenary popped up, charge at the station while passengers getting on and off, then continue, and they can run the entire route, without any issues. And my understanding is, you can actually today with the battery technology, you can actually run on that route in Detroit without any stopping for charging. So now that's a much shorter route. I'm just giving you an example, what it is. So we can certainly look at different technology, when it's time for us to implement that project, and also look at the life cycle of the vehicle. See, perhaps you can use gas and diesel now, but 7 years or 10 years later, when it's time to replace the vehicle, you can go to different technology, as long as you have the infrastructure in place to accommodate that. So yes, I mean, certainly something for us to consider when it's time to implement that.
Thank you. And I saw Jorge raise your hand. You have a question? Jorge, you can.
Yes, I unmute. Thank you. Just one question, but with three things in mind is how much public involvement do we have to make the alternative? And the other one, how many people will be willing to ride it, and how much will it be? Because I'm pro-transit type of person. Since I moved from Miami, I used to take advantage of public transportation with my bicycle, but how much would it cost, and how many people is willing to ride and are favor the alternative or the route that you are proposing?
Okay. As far as public involvement, the planning phase, it was done over a period of 3 years, and I think there were a lot of public involvement between charrette, workshop, public hearing. I mean, there were a lot done as far as identifying the route. So I wouldn't be surprised once they get into the FTA process, they will do that again. For premium route, typically people more concerned with the station location than the route itself, because if you look at a subway, right? You never know how the subway get to one station to another. Could not necessarily a straight line. Could be a curve, could be, going around a building or somewhere. But it's where the station is at. That's where people pay most attention to. Not only for their convenience, but also for development opportunities at the station location. So T-BARTA actually had conducted quite a few station charrette in the last 12 months. They have station identified, and they're making some recommendations. I think They're reducing from 23 stations down to 13 because, you know, when you have too many stations, you're not running it very fast. So, so that process will continue. As far as ridership is concerned, since there's not a existing regional route in the Tampa Bay area, we can only rely on the forecast. You know, obviously, FTA has a stop program for us to do ridership forecasting. So that's what we're relying on. You know, we are counting on choice rider, you know, folks who decide to ride instead of drive. So that's why we want to provide convenience and reliability to folks, so they would decide to ride the transit service instead of driving. And you know, there are many determining factors for people to ride transit. You know, from ownership of vehicle all the way to parking pricing. Hate to say it, the city of Tampa has the cheapest parking rate in the country for similar size of metropolitan area, and the city knows it. We all know it. And how do you know, kind of encourage people to ride transit? I don't know. Maybe it'll take some changes, but you know, that will impact the zoning code. You know, right now you go and build something, you're required to provide so many number of parking spots. You know, Jorge, you say you come from Miami. I remember reading an article recently that I think a apartment building on Flagler, they proposed to have no parking because they force people to park on the street or go ride transit. So, you know, that will have to rely on the local governments who control land use and zoning to make that change. Again, you know, that's a much bigger picture and you know, policy questions. But you know, to increase ridership, you know, that takes lots of effort and many parties to make it happen. As far as the cost for the system, my understanding, it takes about $10 million annually to run the system from one end to another. But obviously, like I mentioned before, the infrastructure is there for local system to take advantage of. So I think as far as the fare is concerned, probably the same as everyone else, you know, $2.50 right now to ride a bus trip. I hope they answer your question, Jorge.
Yes, sir. Right. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. We are close to 1 o'clock, so just the last call. If you have any questions, please unmute yourself and you can start to talk. Any other questions?
I got one question. Hi, Ming. Thank you for presenting this Qinglu. Let me turn on my. I got a question regarding following up the ridership aspect. You know, in recent COVID-19 pandemic, and during this period, I mean, the ridership on public transportation facilities has taken a hard hit worldwide, and some people were arguing that this might be becoming a long-term permanent impact on the ridership or the preference of people towards the public transportation. And I want to see if you had a thought on this, particularly for this regional rapid transit.
Yeah, so we are well aware of that, and we are monitoring the situation. I guess luckily for our area, we haven't built it yet, and you know, our interstate construction project won't be complete until 2029. Just so you know.
Okay. So we'll see.
Everything to be done. You know, what I show you on the interstate, you know, all the express lane, all that, you know, it's fully funded for the West Shore area in 2024. You know, the portion in St. Pete is also funded during the same period. Then you count on the 4 to 5 year construction. That's, you know, when that will be available for service, right? So that's one lucky thing for us. We still have some time to figure out whether it is still a viable project. But I completely agree with you. At this point, we are seeing some major impact, and that may become permanent. That's why we are also investing in other modes of transportation that can help us. If you're familiar with the Downtowner in downtown Tampa, we have funded that project basically as a point-to-point service. You use the app, you say, kind of like a free Uber and Lyft service, but within a geofence per se, a small area within downtown Tampa. That becomes very popular, during pandemic because, you want to have social distancing, you don't want to be riding, sitting right next to each other. So if we provide that kind of point-to-point service, it's great, but it's expensive. I can tell you, it's not cheap to provide that kind of service. Yeah. But we had it for free. I think it will end by the end of this year. So we're talking about charging people $1 or $2, for them to do that. So those type of service that we're considering, and also local circulator shuttle service, like you ride in Busch Garden at Disney. I think those vehicles also provides, like, if we can do open air and you space the seating far away, perhaps that will encourage people to ride it. But the bottom line is, eventually, people will have to go back to transit if you're transit reliant. You have no choice. You don't own a vehicle. Ownership of a private vehicle is not necessary for everyone, especially in big city. I can't speak that for Tampa, but in many big city, owning a vehicle is just not feasible between parking and insurance and all that. So I think eventually we'll come back. I can tell you in bigger cities, I see people riding transit. They just have to have their mask on, just like folks flying. We get on that plane, you're talking about pretty close to each other and people doing it. So you had a great point. At this point, we just don't know, what future holds. So we just have to wait and see. Like I said, luckily we don't have it. We don't have to make that decision at this point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ming, I want to thank you again for the informative presentation, and also thank you for answering all these questions. Very glad to have you, and I hope you come next time. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate your attention and all the great questions. You guys definitely paying attention, and look forward to it. And thank you for having me.
All right, thanks. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week. By the way, next week we will have Jean Duncan from City of Tampa, and who's administrator of the mobility and the construction, and she will come to talk about the efforts that they have made through this COVID-19 to keep the city's transportation going. All right, see you next week. Thank you, Ming.
Thank you.
Good weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.